Maya Rodriguez crouched behind the concrete barrier, her heart pounding as bullets whizzed overhead. The abandoned factory around her echoed with gunfire and shouting voices. 3 months ago, she had been a college student studying engineering. Now she found herself trapped in the middle of a war zone, clutching a rifle that felt both foreign and familiar in her hands. The enemy forces had taken over the industrial district, using it as their base to launch attacks on the civilian areas. Government forces were struggling to push them back, and innocent people were caught in the crossfire. Maya never planned to be here, but fate had other ideas. Her father, Colonel James Rodriguez, had been one of the military's best snipers. From the time Maya could walk, he taught her everything he knew, not because he wanted her to become a soldier, but because he believed every person should know how to protect themselves and others. During their weekend trips to the shooting range, he would say, "Precision isn't just about hitting targets, Maya. It's about making every shot count, when lives depend on it." Those lessons felt like a lifetime ago. Her father had died in combat 2 years earlier, leaving Maya with his rifle, his training, and a deep understanding of how to read the battlefield. She never thought she would need these skills until the conflict reached her hometown. The morning had started normally. Maya was walking to the university when the first explosions shook the ground. Enemy forces had launched a surprise attack, quickly overwhelming the local police and military units. Citizens ran in panic as buildings caught fire and smoke filled the streets. Maya found herself separated from other fleeing civilians when she took shelter in the old factory complex. She discovered she wasn't alone. A group of enemy soldiers had set up their command center in the main building, using it to coordinate attacks throughout the city. From her hiding spot, she could see their communication equipment, weapon stockpiles, and maps showing their next targets. The enemy had chosen their location well. The factory sat on high ground, giving them a perfect view of the surrounding area. Their snipers controlled the main roads, making it impossible for rescue teams to reach trapped civilians. Every hour they remained in control meant more innocent lives lost. Maya knew she had to act. She remembered her father's words about taking responsibility when others couldn't. The military was fighting on multiple fronts and wouldn't reach this location for days. By then, it would be too late for the people counting on help. Using skills her father had drilled into her since childhood, Maya began studying the enemy's patterns. She noticed they had guards posted at regular intervals, but there were blind spots in their coverage. The main sniper nest was located in the factory's old water tower, giving them the best vantage point but also making them isolated from backup. Her father had always emphasized the importance of patience and planning. Rush in without thinking, and you'll get yourself killed along with anyone you're trying to help, he used to say. Maya spent hours observing, taking notes, and identifying weaknesses in their setup. The enemy soldiers were confident, perhaps too confident. They had taken the factory easily and faced no serious resistance. Their guard rotations were predictable, and they had grown careless about checking their blind spots. Maya realized this overconfidence could be their downfall. As night fell, Maya made her decision. She couldn't contact the military or wait for backup. The enemy was planning a major assault on the hospital district at dawn, where hundreds of wounded civilians were trapped. If she didn't stop them, innocent people would die. Maya checked her father's rifle one more time. He had maintained it perfectly, and she had continued his routine of careful cleaning and calibration. The weapon felt solid and reliable in her hands, like an extension of her father's presence guiding her actions. She thought about all the training sessions, all the lessons about wind speed, bullet drop, and breathing control. Her father had made her practice in all weather conditions, at different times of day, and from various positions. At the time, it seemed excessive. Now she understood he was preparing her for exactly this kind of situation. The enemy's communication center was heavily defended, but Maya had identified a weakness. If she could take out their main sniper in the water tower, she could create enough confusion to disrupt their entire operation. The other guards would rush to investigate, leaving gaps in their defenses that she could exploit. Maya moved through the shadows, using maintenance tunnels and forgotten passages her engineering background helped her navigate. The factory was a maze of pipes, conveyor belts, and machinery that provided perfect cover for someone who knew how to move quietly. Her father had taught her that successful sniping wasn't just about marksmanship. It required understanding the environment, predicting enemy behavior, and having the mental strength to remain calm under pressure. Every lesson he shared was about to be tested in the most dangerous way possible. As Maya reached her chosen position, she could see the enemy sniper in the water tower. Completely unaware of the threat approaching from below, the soldier was focused on the roads leading to the factory, watching for any sign of military reinforcement. He had no idea that his biggest threat was already inside the complex. Maya steadied her breathing and began calculating the shot. Distance, wind direction, elevation angle, all the factors her father had drilled into her mind were now critical for success. One chance, one bullet, and the beginning of a plan that would either save countless lives or cost Maya her own. Maya's finger rested gently on the trigger as she aligned the crosshairs with her target. The enemy sniper in the water tower was completely still, making him an easier target, but also giving Maya more time to ensure perfect accuracy. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "Take your time with the first shot. Everything that follows depends on getting it right." The distance was approximately 300 meters, with a slight crosswind from the east. Maya adjusted her aim accordingly, accounting for every variable her father had taught her to consider. Her breathing slowed to a steady rhythm as she entered the focus state he called the zone, where nothing existed except the shooter, the rifle, and the target. The shot rang out across the factory complex, sharp and final. The enemy sniper collapsed immediately, his weapon clattering down the water tower's metal stairs. Maya was already moving before his body hit the ground. Knowing that the sound would alert every guard in the area, chaos erupted exactly as she had predicted. Soldiers shouted orders, running toward the water tower from their posts. Maya counted them as they abandoned their positions. 5 guards from the main entrance, 3 from the equipment yard, and 2 from the communications center. Their disciplined formation broke apart as confusion took hold. Using the darkness and the noise of running soldiers, Maya repositioned herself near the communication center. This was the heart of the enemy operation, where they coordinated attacks and received orders from their commanders. Destroying it would leave the remaining forces isolated and unable to call for reinforcements. Maya had studied the building layout during her hours of observation. The communication center was housed in the old factory office, a 2-story structure with windows facing all directions. The enemy had chosen it specifically because it was easy to defend and provided good visibility. Now those same windows became vulnerabilities she could exploit. 2 guards remained at the communication center, but they were nervous and distracted by the commotion at the water tower. Maya watched them through her scope, waiting for the right moment. Her father had always emphasized patience. Rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes get people killed. The first guard moved to the window, trying to see what was happening at the water tower. Maya took the shot from her concealed position behind a stack of old machinery. The second guard, hearing his partner fall, began radioing for backup, but Maya's next bullet found him before he could complete the transmission. With the communication center silenced, Maya knew she had a limited window of opportunity. The enemy forces throughout the city would eventually notice the loss of contact, but for now, she had created the confusion she needed to continue her assault. Maya moved through the factory like a ghost, using every piece of cover and concealment her father had taught her to appreciate. Old equipment, pipes, and structural supports became her allies as she stalked the remaining guards. Each shot was carefully planned and precisely executed, just as her training demanded. The enemy soldiers were skilled fighters, but they were facing an opponent they hadn't expected. They prepared for military assault teams, not a lone sniper who knew the facility better than they did and could strike from unexpected angles. Their formation tactics, designed for conventional warfare, became disadvantages in this deadly game of cat and mouse. Maya reached the main equipment storage area where the enemy kept their heavy weapons and explosives. This was their arsenal for the planned hospital assault, crates full of rockets and ammunition that would cause devastating casualties if used against civilian targets. She knew destroying this cache would not only prevent the attack but also eliminate the enemy's ability to hold their position. Setting the explosive charges required getting close to the storage area, which meant exposing herself to greater danger. 3 guards remained between Maya and her target, positioned to cover each other's blind spots. Her father had trained her for situations like this, teaching her that sometimes the most dangerous approach was also the most unexpected. Instead of trying to eliminate the guards from a distance, Maya chose to get closer. She remembered her father's lessons about urban warfare. Sometimes, you have to go through them instead of around them. Using maintenance tunnels she had identified earlier, Maya positioned herself directly underneath the storage area. The old factory had a complex network of utility passages that the enemy hadn't bothered to secure. Maya crawled through narrow spaces, carrying her rifle and the explosive charges she had taken from a dead guard. The tunnels were cramped and dark, but they provided the perfect approach route to her objective. Emerging from the tunnel system, Maya found herself inside the storage building, surrounded by the enemy's weapon stockpiles. The guards were outside, watching for external threats, never imagining someone could infiltrate their most secure location. Maya worked quickly, placing charges on the most dangerous weapons while staying alert for any sound of approaching footsteps. As she prepared the explosive devices, Maya thought about all the innocent people who would live because of her actions tonight. The hospital patients, the medical staff, the families hiding in their homes, all of them depended on her success, even though they would never know her name or understand the sacrifice she was making. The charges were set with a 10-minute delay, giving Maya time to escape the immediate blast zone, but not enough time for the enemy to discover and disarm them. She slipped back into the tunnel system. But this time, her exit route was blocked. Enemy soldiers had discovered the tunnel entrance and were moving to surround her position. Maya found herself trapped underground with enemy forces closing in from multiple directions. The tunnels that had been her advantage now became a maze, with limited escape routes. She could hear voices and footsteps above her, soldiers searching systematically for the intruder who had disrupted their operation. With her rifle ready and her father's training guiding every decision, Maya prepared for the most dangerous phase of her mission. The explosive charges were counting down, the enemy was hunting her, and she still needed to eliminate the remaining leadership to ensure the nest was completely destroyed. Time was running out. But Maya remembered her father's most important lesson. When everything goes wrong, stay calm and trust your training. Panic kills more soldiers than enemy bullets ever will. As footsteps approached her position, Maya steadied her breathing and prepared for the final confrontation that would determine whether her mission succeeded or failed. Maya pressed herself against the tunnel wall as enemy flashlight beams cut through the darkness above her. The countdown timer on the explosive charges showed 6 minutes remaining. She had to reach the tunnel exit before the blast, but enemy soldiers were systematically checking every passage and maintenance shaft. Her father's survival training kicked in. He had taught her that when trapped, the key was to think like prey while fighting like a predator. Maya studied the sounds above her, mapping the soldiers' positions and movement patterns. They were thorough, but predictable, checking each area before moving to the next. Maya noticed something the enemy had missed. The tunnel system had multiple levels, with older passages running deeper underground. These forgotten channels were narrow and partially flooded, but they connected to the factory's original foundation system. It was dangerous and uncomfortable, but it offered an escape route the enemy wouldn't expect. Crawling through knee-deep water and rusted pipes, Maya made her way toward the factory's outer perimeter. The timer showed 4 minutes. Every second counted now, but rushing would only lead to mistakes. Her father had drilled into her that steady progress beats desperate speed every time. Behind her, Maya could hear enemy soldiers discovering the explosive charges. Shouting voices echoed through the tunnels as they realized what was about to happen. Some soldiers ran toward the exits while others tried frantically to disarm the devices. Maya smiled grimly, knowing her father would be proud of the confusion she had created. Emerging from the underground passages, Maya found herself outside the factory complex, just as the enemy commander arrived with reinforcements. She recognized him from her surveillance, Colonel Viktor Kozlov, a ruthless tactician known for his brutal attacks on civilian targets. He was screaming orders at his men, trying to organize an evacuation while securing their remaining equipment. Maya had one shot to end this completely. If Kozlov escaped, he would regroup and launch even deadlier attacks against innocent people. Her father had always said that sometimes a single bullet could save more lives than an entire army. This was one of those moments. The distance was over 400 meters in poor lighting conditions, with Kozlov surrounded by bodyguards and constantly moving. It was the most difficult shot Maya had ever attempted, requiring every skill her father had taught her. She thought about his patient instruction, his endless drills, and his belief that precision came from preparation meeting opportunity. Maya found a stable shooting position on a small hill overlooking the factory. The wind was stronger now, and she had to account for the target's movement while calculating the trajectory. Her father's voice seemed to guide her hands as she made the fine adjustments that would determine success or failure. 2 minutes remained on the timer. Maya controlled her breathing, steadied her aim, and waited for the perfect moment. Kozlov paused near his command vehicle, shouting into a radio as he tried to coordinate his forces. For just 3 seconds, he stood still enough for an impossible shot to become merely difficult. Maya squeezed the trigger with the gentle pressure her father had taught her. The bullet traveled across the factory complex in less than a second, finding its target with deadly precision. Colonel Kozlov collapsed instantly, his radio falling silent as his command structure crumbled around him. The explosive charges detonated exactly on schedule, lighting up the night sky with a massive fireball. The enemy's weapon stockpiles, communication equipment, and ammunition supplies disappeared in a series of secondary explosions that shook the ground for miles. Windows shattered throughout the district as the sound rolled across the city like thunder. Maya watched the inferno from her position, knowing that hundreds of innocent lives had been saved by the destruction of the enemy nest. The planned hospital attack would never happen. The terror campaign against civilians was over. Her father's training had made the difference between victory and catastrophe. Enemy survivors fled in all directions, their organization destroyed, and their leadership eliminated. Without coordination or heavy weapons, they posed no serious threat to the civilian population. Government forces would be able to clean up the scattered remnants without major casualties. As dawn broke over the city, Maya made her way back toward the civilian evacuation zones. She carried her father's rifle with the same pride he had shown during his military service. The weapon had served its purpose, protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. Maya never spoke publicly about what happened that night. She returned to her engineering studies, graduated with honors, and eventually became a successful architect, specializing in hospitals and schools. Few people knew that some of those buildings existed because she had prevented their destruction during one terrible night. Sometimes, during quiet moments, Maya would visit her father's grave and tell him about her life. She would describe her work, her achievements, and her hope for a peaceful future. But she never mentioned the night she used his training to crush an enemy nest with deadly precision. Some stories were too dangerous to tell. Even to the dead, the factory district was rebuilt within 2 years, transformed from a battleground into a memorial park, honoring all who died in the conflict. A small plaque near the entrance mentioned the unknown hero whose actions saved the hospital district, but it gave no names or details. Maya preferred it that way. Years later, Maya married a fellow engineer and had 2 daughters. She taught them many things: how to build bridges, solve problems, and stand up for others who needed help. But she never taught them to shoot. The skills her father passed to her had served their purpose, saving lives when no one else could act. Maya hoped her daughters would never need such knowledge. On quiet evenings, Maya would sometimes hold her father's rifle and remember the lessons that shaped her life: precision, patience, and the courage to act when others depended on you. These weren't just shooting techniques. They were principles for living with purpose and honor. The enemy nest was gone, destroyed by someone who learned that true strength came not from violence, but from the wisdom to use force only when it could prevent greater harm. Maya's father had given her more than marksmanship skills. He had taught her to be a guardian for those who couldn't guard themselves. In the end, that was his greatest lesson and her most important victory.